Hey guys, just want to talk to you about these catch cans that people are talking about. I've got to say that there is a simple way of doing it and you don't have to spend a lot of money. So I want to do this video for those who don't understand the basics of it. You don't need to spend a lot of money, like I said. These companies that are selling these catch cans for $200, $300, $400, I'm sure they're a good product, but ask yourself, do you really need to spend that kind of money? So I'm going to run through the basics on setting it up. Obviously, different vehicles require different setups, but the principle of what I want to do here today is exactly the same for every vehicle. So what do you need to have something that's actually going to filter the contaminants before they get to the engine or the turbo, depending on how you set up. And I'm going to show you what parts you're going to need. So for starters, clear tubing. It's a Bunnings product. Very cheap. You buy it in a roll. Hose clamps. You're going to need a few of them. You're going to need elbows. These are from the sprinkler systems that Bunnings sell. For the 13mm, these are fantastic, seriously good. And the beauty of these is once you clamp them down, you can zip tie them. They're out of the way, there's no movement. I'll explain the movement a bit later. Also, you're again referring back to the sprinklers. Those of you who know how the sprinkler systems work, they do run a inline filter where your hose goes in one end, comes out the other. And this filter catches, I should say, any particles that are in the water to stop them going through to blocking your sprinkler system. Well, this thing's going to come in very handy and I'll explain why. Usually these are black, whereas you cannot see what's inside them, but you can buy these online as a clear, and the reason why these are so good is when you're using the filter pads I'm using in this, and I'll show them to you, you can physically see what's going on, and you know without having to pull anything apart what's going on in it and how long before you need to replace it. Now, where do you get the filters from? Well, fish stores. This is the filtering system they run inside the fish tank filter pumps. This stuff is brilliant. Now there's a whole roll of it for 15 bucks. This will last me a lifetime. Okay, so what you do with that, you cut it up into pieces. So I've got here 2 spare filters. So that'll be probably 6 months of actually travelling time. Not 6 months in total, but 6 months of actually travelling time, where I've got replacement filter pads just in case something happens on one of my trips. They pack up nice and flat, you can crush them, they don't do any damage to them, they don't fray, so there's no chance of this floating into your turbo. And this is how it works. If I can find my pliers, well, too late. So I've got that system inside here at the moment, and I run it in 3 sections. You can run a single, but the reason for cutting them up is that, as you notice, the contaminants are starting to fill the filter. Instead of replacing the whole unit, which is a waste of time and money, you just pull out the bit where the contaminants has already been caught. You've still got 2 left in there. They're still clean. They'll go for ages. You can either put that back in, you've still got a lot of travelling to do on that before you need to replace it. So you just push it in, whatever you like, any way you want to do it. I'm not going to do it now because it's just shitloads of oil. And you put it in the tube, screw it into your line. I'm going to show you how it's set up in a minute. And that is going to stop all the contaminants that are flowing through with the vapours and everything else. There's no high pressure system here, it's all natural, so you don't need to worry about sealing the unit completely, even though it is sealed. It works fantastic. This is by far the best system I have run. And this is one that I replaced probably 3 months ago. So those are the little bits and pieces in this capture here that could do a lot of damage to your turbo and a lot of damage to your engine. So I'm going to get up in a second. I'm going to show you how all this is set up, and I'll run you through all the little tips and tricks of what you should do before you just throw the hoses in there and clamp everything down. There's a couple of little things that you need to know about how you run your hose. First thing you need is a catch can. Now, like I said before, you don't need to spend a lot of money. You can buy cheap catch cans on eBay, Amazon. They do the job. It's very simple. You don't need a massive catch can. Really, depending on your system though, I've noticed that with the later model cars, they do drain a lot more oil than these early models, like the 4.2 petrol diesel and the Land Cruisers, both great engines. But what you need on the catch can, you need that, as you can see, the yellow hose, which is a fill line visual. That gives you a visual on how much oil is in the catch can without you having to take anything out or using dipsticks or anything like that. As soon as you open that bonnet, you can see if it's clear, as it is, you know that there's plenty of room there for oil to build up, so you don't need to drain it. Okay, now you can mount it anywhere you like. So the first thing you need to do when you're mounting a catch can, you can mount it anywhere you like. Right, you've got 2 outlets. It doesn't matter which side goes where. All right, there's no baffles, there's no valves, there's no pressure. Remember that, it's free flowing. So one thing that is important though, when you mount your catch can, where a lot of people go wrong, they usually mount the catch can lower than that point there. Now that's where your flow's coming from. So I advise, from experience, always mount your inlet point, which is your fitting, higher than wherever the hose is coming from on your particular vehicle. And the reason why I say that is, it all works fine while you're driving, but when you stop and then everything settles down, whatever is in this hose, it'll flow back in here. Now the advantage of that is it's not going to flow into your catch can, it's not going to give you that extra bit of oil that you really didn't need to sit in there, which means you're going to empty it a lot sooner. Then from that point on, I run clear hose. Reason why I run clear hose, I have a visual on what's happening inside that hose. So if I notice that it's really dark and black, I know that there's something wrong. I can have a look at it. But when it's running as clear as it is here, and this hose has been on the car for a few months now, I usually change my hose every year, depending again on the kilometres I travel. So if it starts to go yellow, it's still fine. As long as you can see inside it, it matters not. But what does matter is, again, the same principle we did with the other hose. Make sure that it heads uphill. Right? There's got to be a point where when the engine stops, whatever's up this point inside that hose, it's going to flow back down inside the catch can. The reason for that is, when you next start the engine, if you had a complete oil blockage in here from excessive oil, it's going to try and push that oil through rather than bring it back into the catch can. So anything that's there, gravity alone is going to push it back into your catch can. So that's going to give you a clear inside diameter flow. From that point on, things get a little bit different. Okay, so let me explain to you. I'm going to move the cam. Right. That's that little garden sprinkler 90-degree hose that I was mentioning before. As you can see, ain't going anywhere. It's not going to corrode or rub anything or cause any holes. It's solid. Works. It does the job. Then from there, it runs back into that filter system that I mentioned before. That really works so good. You really have no idea how good that works until you actually try it. And all it is, like I said, is the filtration system they use in fish tank pumps. $15 a bag. That's going to probably last me longer than I'm going to live. So I'll never have to replace that. I just cut up some strips and I keep them in the bag in a zip tie in case I need to change them on one of my trips. The other thing too I will mention before I go any further, when this starts to get black from all the contaminants that flow through, it increases on the amount, and you usually only get it from highway driving. Okay, you're doing 100 k's, 110, some of you are hitting a bit more than that, but when you're throttling at those speeds, this system is flowing pretty hard, so there's more chance of it catching contaminants at that point than when you're just cruising through fire trails and shit like that. There's not much coming through at that point. Most of this will happen on freeways when you're sitting on 100 k's. So you've got a visual, right? So as you can see, it's nice and clean down here. So getting a little bit on the yellow side up here, and which means that has already captured some contaminants. And as soon as that gets to about halfway, I'll take this off. It's just a matter of unscrewing. You got your flow rate there, your arrow. You can't go wrong, guys. It only sits in there on one side. Once it gets halfway, I'll just replace it. So you can put that filtration system in as a single piece, but I would advise you to cut it into 3 sections. So a third of the way. And what I'll do then is, once this end piece, which is the one that catches all the shit coming through, once that's black, you can just unscrew it, take that out, replace it with a new one, and then you've got another 2 backups in case something goes wrong and you're getting excessive amounts of contaminants. So you've got a 3-stage filter there. It works the same if you did a single, but again, the advantage is you can always replace that bit rather than replace the whole lot and waste filtration system that really is not contaminated. So that's just another point. Then we go down and another 90-degree bend, and then you just go to your Super Cheap or your any place you want. You just buy some heater hose, and you find one that's going to do the job for you. So as you can see here, mine runs underneath. It's all one piece. I don't need to run 6 or 7 90-degree bends. It works perfect. Now, I always mount my return line into the inlet of the filter. So this is running straight into the turbo. Okay, with that system I've got there, I know there is nothing in here that's going to do any damage to that turbo. That works great if you're running the system. And that's all it is, guys.